One of the keys to building a successful dynasty team is knowing when and who to buy low. So that's what we're talking about today, right? We got three guys that I think are just a little bit undervalued, and they are down from their peak cost just a year ago. So let's dive in. The first player on the list, it is Michael Pittman. Over the last 12 months, his startup ADP was wide receiver 9 overall. Now, that has fallen to wide receiver 20. It's important to look, right? Why has he fallen? Is it because we have realized Michael Pittman is not good and can't earn targets? Or is it because the situation was so unbelievably terrible that he has now fallen down rankings? I think we know which one it is, right? What was supposed to be a quarterback upgrade in Matt Ryan clearly didn't happen. It ended up being a trio of Matt Ryan, or the ghost of Matt Ryan, Sam Ehlinger, and Nick Foles.
Disgusting!
It tanked what should have been a very, very good season for Michael Pittman because we saw the route running, we saw the target share, all of it is still very solid. It is true wide receiver 1 type stuff. When we look at target share, right, what prompted us to draft him at wide receiver 9? Well, he saw a 25.7% target share in 2021. He followed it up with a 25.6% target share in 2022. So he still is able to earn targets at a high clip. He even finished higher in terms of points per game at the position, right? He goes from wide receiver 26 to wide receiver 22. So he did improve technically, but it just wasn't the jump a lot of us, myself included, were hoping. If you look at 2021, his profile heading into 2022 from reception perception, his win rate against 3 different coverages, against man, zone, and press. He has a 79th percentile win rate versus man, an 88th percentile win rate versus zone, and then the kicker, a 98th percentile win rate versus press coverage. Michael Pittman, who is still getting better as a wide receiver, was already one of the better route runners in the NFL heading into 2022. Let's take a look at 3 trades from the DLF Trade Finder that have actually taken place. In a Superflex league, we have seen him traded for Kenny Pickett. I am fine to get rid of Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett may turn into a serviceable or above average real-life NFL quarterback. I don't think he's going to get there for fantasy, right? Kenny Pickett will never be a true difference maker in fantasy. Give me Michael Pittman. Next up, we have Diontae Johnson and Mike Gesicki. Now, obviously, I'm a Diontae Johnson fan. We're going to talk about him in a minute, but I don't really care about Mike Gesicki. I think he's a throw-in. As much as I like Diontae, I think Pittman is a better wide receiver. He's a better value in Dynasty, and he's also younger. Give me Pittman over Diontae and Gesicki as well. And then lastly, it is Isaiah Pacheco and the 112 in a 1 QB league. So 112 is really like the 204, 205 in a Superflex league. So you're getting a run first day 3 running back in Pacheco, who I think is talented, but not a guy I want to roster in fantasy. And then the 112 is a borderline dart throw at that point. So give me Michael Pittman as well. Moving to our next wide receiver, it is Hollywood Brown. Again, let's look at the ADP over the last 12 months. He peaked in December of 2022, being drafted as the wide receiver 18 in startups. He now has fallen to wide receiver 30. And there's only one explanation for that kind of drop. It is the situation has changed. And obviously I'm referring to Kyler Murray tearing his ACL. Nothing happened with Hollywood Brown, right? If you're thinking long-term, which you should be in Dynasty, Kyler Murray's going to come back. He's going to get healthy. Hollywood Brown will be the one in that offense. Weeks 1 through 6, before DeAndre Hopkins was back, with Kyler and Hollywood Brown at the helm of the offense, Hollywood Brown was the wide receiver 5 in points per game. That was a freakish ceiling on the back of an insane target share, but the point is just to show you he is capable of producing like a wide receiver 1. It is difficult to find those types of players, especially at wide receiver 30 costs. Like, that's just insane to me, right? We have 2 trades here that have taken place recently. One of them is Hollywood for Jordan Love, and exactly what I said for Kenny Pickett is somewhat true for Jordan Love. I don't know if Jordan Love's going to be in the NFL in 2 years. I don't know if he's a starting quarterback this time next season. We just don't know. So he's a total wild card. I like the safe bet in Hollywood. He is a wide receiver 2 in my eyes with wide receiver 1 upside. Give me him over Jordan Love. And the second trade is Dameon Pierce for Hollywood Brown. Now, we know my feeling on day 3 running backs, right? If I can flip them for productive wide receivers that aren't, 30 years old, I'm going to do it. And that's exactly what Hollywood Brown represents, right? Dameon Pierce had a solid rookie year. Does he survive the NFL draft? I don't know. And does he hold a workhorse role? I'm talking, what he saw last year. in 2023? I also don't know, because Devin Singletary is as good as Dameon Pierce. And it's just, there's enough questions that I give me the wide receiver 2 all day long in Hollywood. Before we get to wide receiver 3, guys, check out the DLF YouTube memberships. Over there, you're going to get multiple videos a month exclusive to our members, so not everybody is going to get access to them. You can go ahead, support myself, support Addison as we do this year-round, basically 24/7 for you. Again, check out the DLF YouTube membership, guys. The bonus content tier is exactly what you are looking for. And to close us out, the wide receiver 3, it is Diontae Johnson, who I am just a massive fan of. And when you look at Diontae Johnson over the last 12 months, his high was wide receiver 13. Now he is being drafted as wide receiver 32. This just feels like too big of an overcorrection, right? Diontae Johnson, there were plenty of knocks on him coming into the season. There's been knocks on him the last 2 seasons. But when you look at what people actually have an issue with, is it really a problem? The drops. That is the biggest thing. If you're on Twitter, if you watch him at all, it's drops. Like, that is the big problem. Well, this year, he was 43rd in drop rate amongst wide receivers. That's behind guys like Jamar Chase, DK Metcalf, Chris Olave, T. Higgins, a number of high-profile, high-caliber wide receivers. They don't get dinged for it, but Diontae does. The next is, well, his average depth of target is so low, and he can't overcome that. He can't be used down the field. Well, in 2021, he has an 8.2 average depth of target. In 2022, that goes up to 10.5. Clearly, it is a product, or was a product, of Big Ben. Now, with Kenny Pickett, they were able to at least push the ball down the field a little bit more. And we saw that, right, with an increase in overall air yards per target, all of these things. Basically, we just saw Diontae Johnson is capable of moving down the field and does not need to be relegated to an underneath role like a lot of people think. And then the big one, right, is production. It just wasn't there this season. He did not score a single touchdown. It was just all around disappointing, right? That's the real reason for the fall. But when you look at expected points per game, he was 20th, which means he is seeing enough volume and the type of targets we care about that he should have produced more. I am a believer in regression, and he should come back to the mean. Now, as Kenny Pickett improves, Diontae Johnson and George Pickens should both be elevated in the offense, and they should score more naturally. So I'm still in from a production standpoint, especially at the price of wide receiver 32. And then the last piece, and I'll get off my soapbox on Diontae Johnson, is he just a good player? Well, he continues to earn targets at a high clip, right? 26.6%, and he continues to be arguably the best route runner in the NFL. And when you look at reception perception, just like we did for Pittman, versus man, he has a 91st percentile win rate. Versus zone, a 98th percentile win rate. And then versus press, an 89th percentile win rate. The most underrated wide receiver in the NFL is Diontae Johnson. What does it cost to acquire him? Well, if you look at the trades that have taken place, the first one is Miles Sanders. And I get the appeal for Miles Sanders in Carolina right now. I still am going to take Diontae Johnson. I think the ceiling is significantly higher. You're talking about a guy that was wide receiver 10 in points per game just a year ago. So I'm in on Diontae over Miles Sanders. And then the last one here is Elijah Moore. Look, I love Elijah Moore. You guys know I am a massive fan. Swung and missed hard last year. I still like Diontae over Elijah Moore, even in Cleveland, because you're baking in just a ton of upside. We know the role for Diontae. We know the volume. We know the red zone targets, the air yards. All of it is going to be there. We can't say the same for Elijah Moore. I think best case, Elijah Moore becomes Diontae Johnson light. And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean that as a compliment. Being a Diontae Johnson light means you see a ton of targets. You have the opportunity to score a bunch. So I prefer Diontae over Elijah Moore because you're taking on a lot of risk and upside with Elijah. All right, guys, that is all I have for you. Again, if you like what we're doing here, subscribe to the channel. Check out the DLF YouTube memberships to support Addison and myself as we do this year-round. As always, guys, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.